who's going to lead this team in carries, and what's the order going to look like at the end of the year in rushing attempts? You just heard Michael Jenkins' answer from the Commanders broadcast network. But this divorce is happening. Brian Robinson is out. In fact, there were reports today that he doesn't even have a locker out in Ashburn at this point. But when Dan Quinn is meeting with his team ahead of a preseason game and telling them that Brian Robinson is not going to play, what I also believe was said was Brian Robinson's not going to be on our team anymore. Like, I don't think he's a part of the operation.
Right.
So now you try to trade him, and if you can't, you make it official and you release him. But you remember when I had suggested and speculated maybe he wouldn't take it too well to be demoted and just be a back of the roster guy?
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't sound like he took the idea that they were thinking about cutting him too well either, because to go from top guy in drills and getting carries with the first team 10, 12 days ago to whatever this is now, something went sideways.
Yeah, I was going to say, running with the ones to no locker is quite the de-escalation, or whatever you want to call it, is the journey. Yeah.
That's not the pace with which things generally happen.
No.
But running back room right now. So Robinson will set to the side. Eckler is the third down, 2-minute, 4-minute back. He is the pass catcher out of the backfield. But while there's going to be some first and second down work, he's certainly not going to be the traditional 3-down back that, around the league existed a long time ago. And if you have a special guy, it may still exist now. So the question really is, who fills in on first and second down as this year goes on? I think there's a great chance that Chris Rodriguez gets the 1st and 10 carry to open the season against the Giants, just because he's next in line, and Krosky Merritt gets in where he fits in, and then over a few weeks kind of supplants him and becomes the guy that gets the most touches. But is there someone else in this conversation other than Krosky Merritt, Rodriguez, and Eckler? Does McNichols make the roster? He got plenty of carries last year. Could we see a guy like Demetric Felton as the year goes on for whatever reason, who's got more NFL carries under his belt than Ja'Cory Krosky Merritt does? Pretty similar to Chris Rodriguez in terms of the role he once had in Cleveland with the Browns. So I want to get your answer, Danny, and then we'll hit the phones. But let's open up the lines now at 800-636-1067 for you guys. Rank your top 3 backs in rushing attempts this season as you see that going.
So I think it's going to be Rodriguez by a nose. Not by a lot, but very, very
Number
close.
one?
Yeah.
Wow.
Because I think it's going to be as committee-y as you can find, hot hand as you can find. I don't think they've got a guy that's going to get 20 carries a game consistently. I just don't think that's who they are. I think Daniels is going to get his share. You've got to set aside 100 carries, give or take, for Austin Eckler. That's in that 6 to 8 range per game, assuming health, but you never can with him. I just don't know if there's a one guy bell cow kind of a situation. I think different different packages, different defenses, different lineups, different heat maps, who's going well, etc. I think Rodriguez I think they still want that thumping downhill between the tackles guy, even though I don't really care about it. So I think we're sleeping on the idea that Rodriguez isn't going to be a significant part. But I think he leads the team in carries as a running back. I actually think Daniels leads the team in carries. But I think it's Rodriguez by just a handful.
So 115 to 120 is the range that I think Eckler's in if he plays all 17 games. Because I think he'll probably miss a couple of games.
He was at 6.5 per carries last year, so that math checks out.
Basically the exact same ratio, so to speak. But I'll put him, you said 100. I think that probably works because I think he misses a couple games.
Mm-hmm.
Let's say 105 carries for him. Robinson got 187 that gets divvied up. Daniels was second on the team with 148. I actually think there's a real good chance, to your point, that Daniels leads the team in rushing attempts if Krosky Merritt doesn't take off. I have a hard time believing Chris Rodriguez would. So I'm going to go first. I'll say Ja'Cory Krosky Merritt. And I think he ends up getting maybe 165, 170 carries, something like that. Daniels, not part of the exercise, but I think would probably be second, somewhere around 125 to 150 in the range that he was last year. Third, I'm going to go with Eckler at, say, 105 or whatever. And then I would go Rodriguez, third among backs, fourth overall. He had 35 last year. I'll basically triple that and say he's in the 90s, low 100s, right behind Eckler. So I guess my order would be Bill Merritt, JCM number 1, Eckler number 2, and then Rodriguez number 3. But I kind of think you could put it in a blender. Like, we're all spitballing here.
Sure.
How could anybody know? And a lot of this is also going to have to do with not only health at that position, clearly, but who's the hot hand? If Chris Rodriguez rips off a 40-yard carry in the season opening carry like he did in the preseason opener against the Bengals at home post the Robinson news, he's not coming off the field the next drive. Like, let's say he goes 12 for 96 in week 1. Well, he's getting 12 to 15 carries the next week. So if it works, they're going to keep feeding him. I'll still roll with Merritt. He is the biggest reason why I think they're comfortable moving on from Robinson. It's not Chris Rodriguez, it's Merritt.
Here's my counter to your counter. Again, I agree with all that. I'm just trying to read them. And last year, despite wild ineffectiveness, despite a complete inability to do very much at all with his carries, it was still Brian Robinson until it wasn't, right? We're still going to trot this out there and see if it goes. Again, that New Orleans game where they ran him into the line of scrimmage a million times, that was late in the season. That wasn't week 2 where we're still figuring it out. They thought their bread was going to be buttered that way, right? Where you go to that the Tampa game, didn't do much. They ran great against Detroit, but who didn't? But you have those. They showed you what they're after, what they want. I think they still want, even though Kingsbury's offense is about spreading you out, ball in space, moving targets, getting people going. I still think they want to make you honest. Like, you got to cover your gut. You get enough gut punches with a downhill between the tackles runner that now you start to respect some of those fakes more. And I think that's what Rodriguez, easy for me to say, Rodriguez's game is.
What about Deebo Samuel? Now, Deebo's career high is 59 rushing attempts in his monster 2021 season when he was mostly a receiver. He went for 1,400 yards and 6 touchdowns that year. He led the NFL 18 yards per catch. But he did have 60 carries basically that season, averaging right around 5 yards per carry, I think it was. If you take the numbers and kind of account for age and injury history and knock off, a dozen or 15 or 20 carries, you could still have him in the mid-40s. That's more carries, as an example, to give you a comp, than Chris Rodriguez had here last year.
Mm-hmm.
Feels like there were games where he was heavily involved. He played in 9 games. He got carries in 7 or 8 games. And yet, Deebo, in his normal year in San Francisco, out-carried that. Could he be third on the team in rushing attempts behind whichever two separate themselves? Like, I'm going Merritt, Eckler. You're going Rodriguez, Merritt?
Yeah.
Then Eckler would be third. But what's realistic? I think Deebo carrying the ball, if he plays in 15, 16 games, 45 or 50 times while bullish is not crazy. I also think that's part of the B-Rob thing. I think they think he's going to be heavily involved. I don't think it's a coincidence that the first play of the actual dress rehearsal where Cliff Kingsbury put together a plan like he wants to in the regular season, the first play was a Deebo end around.
Looking back at last year, there were just over 500 carries, right? I mean, some of it is a kneel down here or there or whatever. So basically, in games, there's just over 500 carries. Daniels is going to account for some, whether it's designed or otherwise. So you take those 120, 130 right off the board. Eckler needs his too. Take that 100 off the board. So you're really talking about 300 carries, give or take, right, in terms of regulation, in-game type flow. So I don't know how many there's going to be for Deebo Samuel or the second option, third option, et cetera. To me, if you're trying to keep Deebo himself, I don't necessarily want him running between the tackles 45, 50 times. It's, to me, you can get that same effect on a pop pass. You can get that same effect on a bubble screen or something like that. You want the ball in his hands, but lining him up as a straight tailback, I don't know how many times you do that. Maybe you show it once to keep him honest, but is it 3 carries a week for Deebo Samuel? 2 to 3? That's kind of puts you in that 35-40 range.
So